Yeah, here we go now, baby. Right back into the action for another day of the week. Welcome to the Thursday edition of Before You Bet. Aaron live right now on the Covers YouTube and X channels. If you're watching on YouTube, smash that like button and subscribe button right down there. So a great big show planned for you guys today. We got Thursday night football. It's not a good-looking game, but I think a pretty good-looking game to bet on. We have 5 total picks for that game. Then we have 2 Major League Baseball playoff games. Then we have a lot of college football to discuss with Jake Butt. That will be in the second half of the show. If you guys want to participate in the show, very easy to do so. We have a poll up in the live chat asking you which side you think will cover the spread in the Thursday night football game tonight. And also, let us know, what do you like in baseball? What are your favorite bets for the Thursday night football game? Active chat here so far. P. Bostana says, what's up, boys and gals, if applicable? I don't know if we have any female viewers. If we do, let it be known. NASCAR expert, Saints money line for me tonight. He thinks the Mets tie it up as well. I agree with one of those opinions. Mark S. says, I got a feeling we might see the return of the Dolphins helmet on Monday. As you guys know, I'm a Dolphins fan. I'm disgusted with their play lately, so I took the helmet down. It's right down there. If they win outright as an underdog on Sunday against the Colts, I'll put the helmet back up. The Dolphins are 1-12 straight up in their last 13 games as an underdog. So they typically don't play up to the competition. I know Joe Oz loves trends. Absolutely. I do. Okay. Let's get into it here, guys. We got a lot to discuss. So let's bring in my guy, the man with the sexiest smile in all of sports betting. Wow. Jingles, how are you?
I'm good. Still looking in the chat for the females. Maybe the smile will bring them out there, Joe. Who knows? But you said this is a game only bettors are going to love Thursday night. But I think it's interesting just because of you got serious receivers, cluster injuries on New Orleans. Like, who's going to catch the ball? Like, you could find these are the spots that are really funny, kind of like the Ray Davis in the Bills game, where I don't know, like Cedric Wilson could have 50 yards and he's paying like plus 800. Someone could jump out, and just because there's not a lot of high totals in terms of props for these guys, there could be a few gold mines in there tonight.
P. Bostana says, Jingles, show your smile to the women. Absolutely not. Jingles and I are both married men. We're all about loyalty. You do not cheat on your diet. You do not cheat on your wife. Producer Mick, however, is single and ready to mingle. So yeah, hit him up. Okay, so we got a lot of picks to get into for the Thursday night football game, and then 4 total for the baseball games tonight. So let's get right into it. I'm going to get us started here. I'm going to take the Broncos to cover the spread -2.5. There's some threes out there, -2.5 over at BetMGM. So here's why I like the Broncos to cover this number in the Sean Payton revenge game, if you want to call it that, but just an avalanche of injuries for the Saints, headlined by QB1, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, all being out. So a severely limited Saints offense taking on what I think is a really underrated Broncos defense. Do not sleep on this defense. 2nd in yards per play allowed, 1st in the red zone, 4th in QB pressure percentage, 2nd in sacks versus a rookie quarterback on a short week, who doesn't have any of his receivers here either. And then you check out this trend. Yeah, you guys know I like my trends. The Saints do not perform well in this situation. They are 2-9 against the spread in their last 11 games as a home underdog. People like to think they got some big-time home field advantage. Not so much, especially since Drew Brees is not on the team anymore. And, you know, sometimes you can make fun of these motivational angles, but let's be real. Everyone on that roster, the coaches, the players, these guys should be on high alert. This is an emotional game here for Sean Payton. It's going to be shoved down our throats here tonight. His homecoming in New Orleans. I wonder if they mentioned Bountygate. Probably not. That won't come up. But yeah, I like the Broncos to cover this number. A lot of evidence points in their direction. Jingles, let's go to Prop City. Get us started with a anytime touchdown score. A man by the name of Audric Estime.
Audric Estime. Now, shout out to
screwed it up.
But that's all right. Shout out to boss man Brandon Dubray out there. He finally gets a shout out on Before You Bet. Big Notre Dame fan. And he's like, let's talk about it. And if you've been following the Denver running game, you know that it's been absolutely trash. The offense has been bad in general, 22nd in EPA per rush, 27th in EPA per dropback. There's a change coming, and Estime came in last week. He played 2 snaps. That sounds pretty low, but he had 2 carries for 14 yards. So there's plays for him. He is a big back. Javonte Williams has not been good. He's had 8 carries in the red zone, stuffed in every single one. He's had 5 within the 5-yard line, hasn't produced anything. It's a very, very bad red zone offense. And let's bring in a guy who was 3rd in the nation last year in rushing TDs at Notre Dame. And obviously, Jaleel McLaughlin is more of your stereotypical 3rd down catching back. There's some room for this running back to get a little look. Now, it's a good price at the 700, but last TD might be worth more of a sprinkle there too, because maybe he won't start, but maybe he comes on within this. It only takes 1 carry from John Metler, who knows all about +7 home runs, and it only takes 1 swing as well. But 25-1 last TD may be worth a sprinkle here as well, because his role could grow within this game. Because let's be honest, this rushing game from Denver has been brutal. And at the end of the day, we've seen what this New Orleans defense has done over the last 2 weeks, right? Kareem Hunt, 21 carries, 100 yards. Both backs in Tampa Bay last week absolutely ran over them. It's their 3rd game in 11 days. They've been on the field for like 150 plays over the last 2 games. It's gassed, it's injured, and now let's add like a 5'11", 230 back who it's coming up and fresh. A little high on him today. No rushing markets, but TD +700.
Taking a swing, 7-1 touchdown score. I like that one very much. Now, you threw a little bit of shade at Javonte Williams there. I mean, who I am backing tonight, but not on the ground, but through the air. I like him to go over 17.5 receiving yards. So check out what he's done so far this season. He's 2nd on the team in targets. This is a running back, ladies and gentlemen. He averages 17.7 more snaps than the next closest running back on the Broncos. He's had 6 targets in back-to-back games. He has a high ceiling for receiving yards, as he has games of 50 and 48 so far this season. He might be able to break off one big one and go over this number. And to bring it all together, the Saints have struggled against running backs in the passing game. They've allowed the 6th most receiving yards to running backs, an average of 42.8 per game. So Williams over 17.5 receiving yards. Hopefully some dump offs there from Bo next. Okay, let's keep on rolling here. You're going to target a Saints tight end, Foster Moreau. What do you like for him?
I like the price. I like the number. And it's just a bunch of modest prop overs in this game for this New Orleans offense. This was released blitz last night. Cardi released at +185. Which is a gigantic number. MGM still with the best price here, +140, seen as low as +125. Projects for 1.95 catches. So anything plus money, pretty good here. Hill, doubtful. Obviously, Olave, Shaheed are out. We're expecting a little more 2 tight end sets, which would keep him on the field more. He had 2 targets last week, 2 grabs, 54 yards, 64% snap share rate last week, and ran 12 routes to Johnson's 35, but like I said, projects for 1.95. Role could grow because of the lack of wide receivers. So maybe some more 2 wide receiver sets, and could be an easy one at 2. Plus money 2s. Absolutely love them.
Okay, next up, a man who made the rounds last week, mainly in part due to his name, Bub Means. You like Bub Means to be involved tonight? What are you betting for Bub Means?
When me and Cardi were releasing our plays yesterday, it was interesting to be like, well, Olave and Shaheed, they weren't ruled out yet. So where do you put it on an indoor game? Where do you put the total for a wide receiver 1? And he is a wide receiver 1. He ran 100% of his snaps, 2 wide receiver sets last week after the first quarter. He had a team high 8 targets for 5 catches and 45 yards and a touchdown. So where do you go? My spot was, it's tough to have a wide receiver 1 at anything under 39 yards, and the blitz is projecting over 45, closer to 50 yards today for Bub Means, and he's going to be a popular choice for a lot of people. I get it. His over 3.5 receptions moved from +135 to -110. People are getting on board and back in Bub here, but the spot is Patrick Surtain is out. He's been one of the best cornerbacks in all of football, just locking people up. It's a good secondary, but without Surtain, there's a spot where he can go over this just on volume alone, right? 6-7 targets. You expect him to go over this in this spot, indoor game. It's going to keep ticking up. It's one of those low totals again, right? Cedric Wilson, 17.5 yards. Foster Moreau, 8.5 yards. Juwan Johnson, 25.5 yards. Like there's a room where all of those guys go over, but not by much, but can all go over. So there's a lot to like in this spot. And I mean, it's a low total game, so we're getting a little bit of a discount there. But Bub Means and our other man, Audric Estime, there's some new names in town on Thursday night, and I'll be back in both of them.
This is a traditional game of Thursday night football. Thursday night football typically doesn't have a good reputation. We've had a couple of good games the past couple of weeks, not so much here tonight, but hopefully from a betting perspective, it turns out to be absolutely fantastic for us. Okay, so that's 5 total bets for the game tonight. Guys, hit up that live chat. Let us know what side you like. Is anyone on the Saints here tonight? I'm not hearing a lot of people picking the Saints. Hitman came out on Tuesday's show and made a really good case for the Broncos, so I'm happy to be on the same side as him for this one. Okay, let us shift gears here over to Major League Baseball. Jake Butt coming up in a matter of minutes to talk about all the big storylines here in college football. A lot of big games this weekend. Okay, so we saw the Dodgers pick up a W in Game 3 there at Citi Field last night. Any thoughts on Walker Buehler? He got out of a jam. I think it was, the third inning when they had the bases loaded, and he was able to get out
and his 2 walks and an error. Yeah, blew my 2 walks out of the water prop, but I don't know. He pitched well and he went 4 innings again, right? Like this is the point of, we've already talked about it a bunch of times. Like the divisional series was funny because the days off were kind of proficient, like between games. And now this is the first time in playoffs where you got back-to-back games in games 3, 4, 5 on the road. It really is interesting to see what teams are doing. I don't even know if the Dodgers have anybody lined up for tomorrow yet.
Yeah, kind of a must-win game, I would say, here for the Mets. You don't want to go down 3-1 with 2 games remaining.
Shut out twice in 3 games.
Yeah, I mean, up and down, right? Alonso hit one to the warning track. I had the over on his hits, runs, RBIs. I thought that one was going over the fence. It was not.
There's a big difference between playing in LA in the heat and playing in New York in what is probably now, 12 degrees Celsius, whatever that is for our American friends over there. But you're looking at high 50s, 60s, 65. It's not great hitting weather.
Yeah, maybe that did help Buehler, because I had looked at Buehler and it wasn't a favorable situation for him going into that game. You know, he's been pretty up and down. We saw him have that really bad inning against the Padres in the NLDS. And one other thing I noticed why I took the over on the game, thankfully the Dodgers took care of that on their own, was that he hadn't pitched outside of California in about a month. So pretty big climate change. And, you know, he wasn't fantastic, but he was efficient. And that's all he needed to be with that offense. Okay, let's start with the American League here tonight. We each have a bet for this game going down in Cleveland. The Yankees looking to take a commanding 3-0 lead. They are in great form here, especially at the plate. And I'm going to go back to the well on one that hasn't quite been auto bet for me, but it's a play that I've enjoyed very much lately. I still think it's being offered at a fair number. I'm going to take Juan Soto to go over 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. This is at -125. So yeah, I'm back on the big money spot. It's hit for me a couple times. It did not hit in game 2. He only had the 1 hit in that one. But pull back, take a look at the big sample size. This has hit in 11 of his last 14 games overall. That's going back to the regular season. And he's always in the mix in the playoffs here. It's hit in 16 of his last 21 playoff games. Yeah, pretty good at Yankee Stadium. But guess what? Soto's better on the road this season, where he has an OPS over 1,000. And for what it's worth, maybe something, maybe nothing. He doesn't have a whole lot of experience against Matt Boyd, but he did face him in August and hit a home run against him. So maybe he can cash this for us with one swing of the bat. So let's go, Soto. You have a bet on the Guardian starter, Matt Boyd.
Yeah. Sadly, the number has moved significantly since we jumped up on the stream here. Got the over 3.5 at +120 this morning. Gave it out. Was on Visson morning lines today. Gave out that. It held tight for a while, but it's moved significantly back down to about -110. But even at that spot, it's still not bad. The projection from the bat is 4.71 strikeouts. Now, you see in the chat, Bobby No, it wasn't Bobby saying it. Sorry, he was talking about the next game. But it's an interesting case with Boyd. So Boyd pitched game 5, and he only went 2 innings, but I think that was more blueprint than anything else. In game 2, he went a little bit longer, 4.2 innings, struck out 5, 19 batters faced, 72 pitches. I think that's what we should expect from him, because all of a sudden, like I said, game 3, Guardians back to back to back. They need to preserve a bullpen that's been exposed this entire playoffs, because even when their good guys are on the mound, they're not even getting deep. Like, things got ugly for Bobby too in game 2. It was super ugly for him, and the bullpen had to clean up that mess as well. They ate a lot of innings. So I wouldn't be surprised if Boyd went like 12 outs here, maybe into the next inning, but probably around 19, turns the order over, faces the lefties, right? Maybe faces Soto a third time through the order as the lefty. But like the strikeouts here, he was more than a strikeout per inning guy over his 8 starts during the regular season. And I don't know, 3.5. I got the plus money, but I still take the minus 110, I think, as well.
Timmy Two Shoe in the live chat. My gambling parlay. This is a D-gen parlay if I've ever seen one.
Man who knows
Bo Nix touchdown, Dylan Strome assist, and Stanton homer. Timmy, let us know. How much is that parlay paying at? I wish you best of luck with that. I would love to see that hit for you. Okay.
Boyd stuff in the chat. Bobby saying, but Boyd stuff. His stuff has been the best out of all the pitchers. Like, the matchup was a little easier versus Detroit. Let's be honest here. And P. Boston A is still saying this is a must-win game for Cleveland. Yes, but if Boyd is going, then let Boyd cook. And 12 outs and 4 strikeouts is where this should end.
Okay, let's go Boyd. Hopefully Soto can go yard against him again, though. We can both cash our bets.
Jump in one more time. Talk about one thing that.
Go.
Like, you've watched the Cleveland series, right? Like, Stephen Boyd, the manager, has absolutely pinch hit for guys constantly in the series, right? He's pinch hit for guys who haven't even hit yet, guys like Noel. So there's some really good spots. The lineup isn't out yet, but first thing I bet today was Bo Naylor under 0.5 hits, minus 150. Not sure if he gets a start or Austin Hedges gets a start, but in this spot, he's been pinch hitting the catcher every game in the series. So you might only get 2 plate appearances within him, and they're not good hitters to begin with. So take a look there. There's a few guys within this lineup that he's pinch hit for, especially DH Cal Manzardo and Will Brennan and David Fry. So maybe some spots where you could suck out some value with guys who get pinch hit early, because Clark Schmidt isn't expected to go deep.
Yeah, some spots to find if you do your digging, but some absolute sharp line sets for the Major League Baseball playoffs. Odds makers are on it for the most part here. One guy they are on. I was hoping Jose Quintana. Let's go bet under 2.5 earned runs again. Sure, you can bet it, but it's around minus 150, minus 155. So I got to find a different way to back Quintana here tonight in this game against the Dodgers at Citi Field. So I'm going to go Mets first 5 innings, plus 120 on this. I absolutely love this bet tonight. So Quintana's on an incredible roll right now, guys. 0 earned runs allowed in 5 of his last 6 starts. 1 or fewer earned runs allowed in 7 of his last 8. This includes 0 earned runs allowed in 2 playoff starts, which is 6 hits allowed. He's building a pretty good reputation as a big game pitcher in 6 career playoff starts. 4 of those, he allowed 0 earned runs once again. So check out Yamamoto. Pretty inconsistent stretch for this guy, right? Like, we know he was injured in the middle of the season. He hasn't thrown 80 pitches in a game since June. We saw him get lit up in one of his starts there against the Padres. And yeah, the Mets shut out yesterday. I do think we have to trust this team to be able to bounce back a little bit, especially on their home field where they had been elite, one of the best offenses at home here in the second half of the season in Major League Baseball. You check out how they responded in their 2 previous losses in the playoffs. They scored 7 runs in each of those games. So I think a good spot here. And hey, they might be up 1-0 at the end of 5 innings. That's all I care about. So Mets to be leading at the end of 5, plus 120. And really, it's the big part of this bet is Quintana on an absolute roll here. This guy seems like he's been around forever. He has. I think he's around 35 years old. But yeah, he's just on a tear right now. So we'll back him and hope the Mets can get back into form, produce a little bit of offense early on. Jingles, you are backing the pitcher in the other dugout. Yamamoto.
Oh,
No,
it's almost.
I wasn't taking a big dump on him by any means, but
You dumped on my guy, Joe. You dumped all over
hasn't
him.
exactly been lights out here, but you like him. It's a pretty modest bet you're making, though. I think they got a pretty modest number. I like
13 and a half outs, bud. 13 and a half outs, even money. So like you said, he got beat up in game 1, San Diego. Obviously, that was in LA with better hitting weather. There was a big delay between his last start in the regular season and that first start in the divisional series. So let's chalk it up to maybe some rust. Then he comes out in game 5, deciding game 5, absolutely deals toe-to-toe with Darvish, gets that win. He looked incredible. Wasn't whiffing a lot of bats, but all of a sudden now he gets an offense that's been shut out twice in the series. Came into the series with a 693 OPS. A little colder weather. There's a lot to like about maybe a blueprint of Yamamoto going 4 innings, more, 5 innings, 15 outs, hopefully in the spot where it's TBD for pitching tomorrow. Even Walker Buehler, even his 4 innings yesterday that he struggled and threw a lot of pitches in, they still had to clean up that mess. So let's protect the bullpen. Could be a big bullpen day tomorrow. Hopefully we get pitching into the 5th here. And the 13.5 is a vulnerable number in terms of outs, right? That's like the same as 16.5. Mm-hmm. Is he expected to finish an inning? Is he expected to come out? No, it's right in the middle. So that one always a little trickier for books to price. And this is a guy who, in that game versus San Diego, I mean, lots of people are not betting his strikeouts because of it. I think he had like 3 swings and misses on 60 pitches, but the guy's just been so sharp. Lots of balls in play. I think the cold weather helps that. Should keep the pitch count lower. And how about this? Last year in the Japan series versus the Oryx Buffalo, he got beat up in game 1. Comes out in game 6, complete game, 14 strikeout, 138 pitch outing for game 6. Yeah, that's Japanese baseball for you, the 138 pitch limit.
Hell yeah. No, I like that. I kind of like the angle of the potential bullpen game coming tomorrow. So I do think if he gets through the first 2 innings pretty
if he's clean, they'll let him
I think it's going to be smooth sailing for him to at least cross that number here, right? So that D-Gen parlay, where was it that he gave out? Bo Nix touchdown, Dylan Strom assist, and Stanton homer. 2,806.9 is the odds on that one. So if you want to tail a stranger that you've never met before, that might be an opportunity for you. Someone's probably going to watch the show and tail that bet, so I will be cheering for you guys to hit on that one. Jingles, I'll be cheering for your bets to hit here tonight and tomorrow as well, because you're going to be right back with us. All of our best bets for the Sunday NFL games. Let the people know what else you have going on here, though, at Covers. It's hockey season, right?
Yeah, it's hockey season. We crushed it yesterday, stacking line mates. Lots of people in the chat probably there. Producer Mick absolutely stacking too. It's there he is there. But it's one of those things that, like, if you're giving it out to the public at this time, it's going to get scaled back, especially if it keeps cashing. It probably has a weak shelf life and it's going to be dead. So some people will probably hate me for giving that out, but at the end of the day, it's been a fun ride. And it shows people how to bet, right? Like people who don't bet hockey are jumping on it, and strangers on the internet, Bobby Newport. Oh, couldn't be me. No. It's just a spot where you're teaching people how to bet, finding value within betting, right? I don't know, Cole Caulfield and Yaroslav Sikorsky play on the same line. The chances of them pointing on the same point, on the same goal, probably a little higher than what we're getting in terms of value from the book. So we've been stacking that. Carlo and I doing our show Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 10 o'clock, doing hockey picks, shooting the shit over there. And then Friday, we got our Blitz releases with Derek Carty for what is this week? I'm so lost. We have more London, not in Tottenham Stadium. We got double Monday night again. Like the primetime games just keep rolling. Like it's week 7, and then we're still getting fed 5 primetime games a week.
Yeah, it's a beautiful week here in the NFL, and we're going to be discussing a lot of those games tomorrow. So, Jingles, best of luck with all the bets here tonight across the NFL, Major League Baseball, and the NHL, doing a little bit of everything here for us at Covers. So, yeah, we'll catch you tomorrow, buddy. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Joe. We'll see you tomorrow. Later, guys.
Yes, sir. Okay, so around 1,000 live viewers now across YouTube and X, an active live chat today. Guys, if you've never participated in the live chat, don't be shy. Hop in there. Let us know what you're betting on tonight. We have a poll up to see what side of the spread in the Thursday night football game you guys are on. I have a feeling a lot of people are going to be on the Broncos here. I'm surprised that hasn't cleared 3 at some books. There are some 2.5s out there. If you like that, make sure you bet that now because it could be 3 everywhere by game time. Okay, earlier this morning, I spoke to Jake Butt about everything going on in the world of college football. Let's throw to that interview. All right, it is now time for our weekly conversation with former Michigan Wolverine and Denver Bronco, current analyst for the Big Ten Network, our guy, Jake Butt. Jake, what's up? How we doing?
As I say every week, Joe, excited to, do this show with you, baby. We're in the thick of season. How good has college football been, though, right? Like every single weekend, we got a top 5, a top 10 matchup. I just think about the people, the alarmists that said, oh my God, this is the end of college football, NIL and the transfer portal. It's the gift that keeps on giving, baby. We have another weekend full of big-time matchups.
Stacked matchups in both seasons. It always does this. I'm not going to pretend to be surprised by it. We're at the 1/3 mark of the NFL regular season, at the halfway mark of the college regular season. A lot of great storylines at each. So let's get into some of those. Let's start in college here. So, like I said, we're at the halfway point of the regular season. Who is a team that has maybe underperformed or maybe flown under the radar for some reason that you think could make a little bit of noise here in the second half of the regular season?
You know what? I think Texas A&M has really slid under the radar. You just think about the firepower in the SEC. It's understandable, right? I won't say I'm picking them to win the SEC, but they had that opening season loss, their first game of the year versus Notre Dame. And it was like, maybe this Mike Elko era, it might take some time, but they've been rolling ever since. And you look at their schedule, there's really 2 key matchups left, LSU and, of course, Texas. Both of those are winnable games. So you're looking at a team that can be an 11-1, maybe 10-2, and at the worst 9-3. That'll be real noisy when you talk about the playoff conversation. And the game versus Texas at the end of the year, like I think Texas is so unbelievably talented. I know we've talked about it. There's a gap. But rivalry games, anything can happen. Another team I'll just tell you I've been following them is Wisconsin in the Big Ten. They're not going to win the Big Ten, okay? I'm not saying that. But they play some teams in the back half of their schedule. They've found something offensively. They have an identity. They've been balling, almost outscoring their opponents by nearly 100 points over the past 2 weeks. They're a team that can make some noise in the Big Ten.
Okay, conversely, who's a team that's gotten off to a good start, that's getting some positive buzz that you think could fall off here?
Yeah, so I think Notre Dame doesn't fit that mold of what you're saying, and you look at their schedule and it's a patty cake schedule. They should be able to run the table, and I say this because what's going to happen? The Notre Dame fans and all their alliance, and they're a freaking army out there. They're going to be talking about what this season could be. I've seen nothing that makes me believe they can make a legitimate run at any type of national title or anything meaningful. And you compile that with the fact they just continue to get injured. They just lost their best defensive back in Morrison. I believe he's their nickel. That's one of 5+ injuries they've dealt with this year. Really, really tough to overcome. I know we're going to talk about them in a second here. Tennessee. Feels like, man, that offense was the headline the first few weeks. They got this talented freshman in Nico Iamaleava. And then you start to look at their offensive numbers. They're skewed heavily, and they've benefited from some of those patty cake games they had to open the season. I got real concerns if they don't get it done this weekend versus Bama.
Okay, Jake, let's play a little game called Undervalued, Overvalued, or Properly Valued. Let's talk Oregon Ducks. You take a look at the national championship odds board. They're sitting there with the 4th best odds to win the national championship. So I want to get your thoughts on that. Obviously, yeah, they're behind Texas, but they just beat Ohio State. They outplayed them in that game. They're behind Georgia as well, ahead of Alabama. So what do you think of Oregon having the 4th best odds despite that big win there last week?
It's crazy. I know what you're saying, and I know how this is going to sound. They're perfectly valued. And what's really interesting about that game last weekend, my opinion of Ohio State didn't change at all. And in fact, I think I might even be more confident in the fact that Will Howard looked like a star. That was the best quarterback performance they'd had since C.J. Stroud. Obviously, they have the weapons of Jeremiah Smith and Ibuka and all their wide receivers. I was shocked to see the fact that they had 12 rushes for 19 yards in the second half with Judkins and Travion Henderson. That's Ohio State. The reason why all this happened is because they're playing the Oregon Ducks. The odds are close, right? It's not a big gap. So I think the odds are fair in that sense. What's really encouraging for Oregon, they played by far their best game of the season. Part of the reason they struggled early in the year was their trench play. Their offensive line looked shaky. Well, against Ohio State, didn't give up a single sack. Their defensive line looked shaky. We saw Ashton Genty run all over them. I just mentioned they held Ohio State to 19 total rushing yards in the second half, and they did it without their best defensive lineman. That roster is absolutely loaded. I wanted to see Dan Lanning coach in a big moment. That was the big thing. Dan Lanning and Ryan Day, both coaches that have been excellent but fallen short. Dan Lanning, the 12 men on the field. Brilliant, brilliant play. So I'm confident in the Ducks, but not confident enough to have them, that high up. I still like Ohio State's roster. And I think if that was at a neutral site or in Columbus, Ohio State wins that game.
Okay, let's get into a couple of these big games here this weekend. Nothing bigger, of course. Georgia, Texas, prime time, Saturday night. Fired up for this one. So Texas favored by 5, total of 56. And the Longhorns have been on an ass-kicking tour all season long. They're undefeated, of course. Each of their wins coming by at least 19 points. They have 4 wins by 30 or more points. So here we have them favored by 5. Big test for them. Do you think Georgia can give them a game and keep this one tight?
I do. I think Georgia can give them a game. I do think they'll keep it tight. I do not think they'll win. I think Texas is going to be too much for everybody. And what's crazy, though, too, is when we talk about Georgia, think about the standard there. I think they've lost 1 regular season game in the past 3 years. And it's like, what are we talking about here? That's a talented, stout program. Carson Beck, statistically, since the second half of the game versus Alabama, statistically, has been one of, if not the best quarterbacks in college football. So that's really encouraging. But this game is all about Texas to me. That offensive line, when you have elite offensive line play, everything works. Everything becomes easy. They're on like their 4th or 5th running back with injuries and rotation, and they're just dominating. They have the best offensive line in college football by a landslide. The challenge is Georgia, they don't have a great pass rush. And we've seen what Sark and Quinn Ewers and even Arch Manning can do. The offensive line is the foundation of that team. It's going to carry them all the way to a national title this year, I believe. So I do think Texas wins this, and I do think they cover.
Okay, let's talk Alabama, Tennessee, 2 teams desperately in need of a strong performance. Alabama favored by 3 points in Tennessee, total of 56. So neither team has been impressive its last 2 times out. Of course, Alabama, they lose to Vanderbilt. They struggled to beat South Carolina. So what does Alabama need to do to get back on track, and how do you think these 2 teams match up?
Yeah, I mean, what they have to do is to come in with the right mindset, because going on the road, this is one of the more challenging places to play. And this is that part of the game. The mental side is what I'm most interested in seeing, because I bring the numbers and I like the numbers and all that great stuff. Jalen Milroe has been phenomenal. Certainly he's in that Heisman conversation. How do you win on the road? Well, what Bama's been reliant on is the explosive plays. We've all seen the highlights with Ryan Williams, but it's also his ability to run. He's one of the best running quarterbacks in college football. So when you talk about going on the road environment in a stadium that's going to be charged up and juiced up, wait till it's 3rd and 8 and everyone's on their feet screaming, trying to rattle Alabama. Well, don't even throw the ball. Jalen Milroe is just going to be able to tuck it and run. Those are gut-wrenching plays. On the flip side, I love their young quarterback, Nico Iamaleava, but he's started to show his youth a little bit. He's not playing all too confident. The problem is Alabama, the back end of Alabama's defense, their secondary is elite. So this feels like a game that Bama just is too much for a young quarterback in Nico Iamaleava. Bama wins.
Okay, so maybe some fireworks in that one. Maybe not a lot of fireworks, though, in Michigan, Illinois. We got to talk about your former school here. So the Wolverines favored by 3.5. Total of 44. I don't know. I think people might be sleeping on Illinois here on their home field. So Illinois really good at covering spreads this season, 4-1-1 against spread. Michigan, that is not the case, 1-5 against the spread. I don't know. Do you give Illinois much of a shot on their home field as an underdog here?
Oh, I absolutely give them much of a shot. And when you look at this matchup, it's really it's an interesting and in a sense favorable matchup for Michigan, though. So what Illinois needed to do this offseason was start to protect their quarterback, Luke Altmaier. He was top 5. He was in the top 5 of most sacked quarterbacks last season, and he missed like 3 or 4 games. So he was just hit and hit and hit. This year, the offensive line has been able to protect him, which has allowed him to distribute the ball. They got great receivers and a guy like Zaire Franklin and Pat Bryant, one of the better receiving duos Michigan has seen all year. So Illinois is all about throwing the ball. The challenge is, and it's going to be a race against time. Michigan's defensive line, Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, Josiah Stewart, even Derek Moore. They got 3 first-rounders on their D-line. I'm not kidding. They really do. And then they got the best cornerback in college football, Will Johnson. What's a wild stat here for you, Joe? Teams playing against Michigan, their average time to throw from snap to throw is 2.4 seconds. Teams are getting the ball out quick because they know that defensive line is coming. Altmaier is not. That's not the case. He hangs onto the ball a little bit longer. So I'm saying here, what changes in this game? Does he adjust? Does he get the ball out quick? And then for Michigan's, their pass defense has been atrocious to start the year. That's the most disappointing part. Do they get up in press coverage and try to force Altmaier to throw into tight windows? And then the turnover battle. Right now, Illinois tied for 4th in terms of forced turnovers on the season. Michigan is second to last in terms of most giveaways on the season. So turnovers can absolutely decide this game.
Okay, so those are 3 of the higher profile games. Let's talk about your best bet of the weekend here in college football. We have Nebraska, a 6.5-point underdog taking on Indiana. You like the dog in this one.
Okay, yeah. I got some numbers here too, and these are extremely telling numbers. First off, Indiana, this is by far the best opponent that Indiana's faced all year. I don't want to take anything away from what they've done because you have to win, and they've been dominant against lesser opponents. I don't want to take anything away, but they have not seen a defensive line like what they're about to face against Nebraska. I look at Indiana's film, and I'm like, what makes them special? And it's not like, Ohio State, it's the play calling and the weapons, and it's sexy. It's like watching a Lamborghini race down the racetrack. Indiana is just fundamentally sound. They run their RPO system. They distribute the ball. The problem is what stops all of that is a great defensive line. Nash Hutmaker, Ty Robinson. So Nebraska played Rutgers a few weeks prior, and Rutgers head coach Greg Schiano, he called Nebraska's defensive line a top 5 unit in college football. It's extremely disruptive. Here's the numbers, though, Joe, and take a look at this. Nebraska has a young quarterback in Dylan Raiola. He's a 5-star. He's been the star of conversation in town. There's 2 Dylan Raiolas. There's a Dylan Raiola facing zone coverage and a Dylan Raiola facing man coverage. So check this out. Versus zone, Raiola has a 90.2 passing grade. That's 5th among all FBS quarterbacks. Versus man-to-man, it's a 44.4 passing grade, which is 132nd in the country. That's extremely different. Indiana, they play a ton of zone coverage, so obviously they're going to adjust. But from a matchup standpoint, Indiana hasn't seen anything like what they're about to see this week for Nebraska. I think Nebraska can win this game, but I'll take the points.
Okay, nice breakdown. I think I'm going to have to tell you on that one. Okay, let's talk about Thursday night football here tonight. And it has the makings of a game that only a bettor could love. It looks like a traditional game of Thursday night football. We've had a couple bangers on Thursday night the past couple Thursdays, but we have an injury-ravaged Saints team down quarterback 1, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, some other injuries as well. The Broncos in town, Sean Payton's homecoming. The Broncos are favored by 2.5, total on the low end, 36.5 here. What do you make of the matchup? Any bets stand out to you in this game?
Yeah, you're right. Only a bettor could love this game, or just sickos that love narratives, because, Sean Payton, can he turn around Denver? I was there for those dark years, man. The standard for the Broncos is extremely high. It hasn't changed. The results just haven't been there. And early in the season, you're looking at Bo Nix and you're like, wow, did they make a mistake with this guy as a 1st-round draft pick? September does not matter in the NFL. look how good the Saints looked at times earlier in the season, right? The Broncos are they're settling in, and I think what we're starting to see is them ascend. And what I know is Sean Payton's system is very favorable for quarterbacks. I'm looking at Bo Nix, at a guy that's going to, be one of the top quarterbacks in the top half here in the next few years. What I love about this matchup, though, you mentioned all the injuries for the Saints. Kamara, the whole weight of that organization is on Kamara's shoulders. 32.5 is his over-under on reception yards. I'm taking the over there. I think anytime touchdown is also sitting at plus 100. If the Saints want to win, it's going directly through Kamara. That includes screens. That includes, obviously, checkdowns and even just organic passing concepts to get him the ball. That's great value there, 32.5.
Okay, let's talk one of the big games on Sunday here that you have on your radar. The undefeated Minnesota Vikings playing host to the Detroit Lions. So the spread is down to 1.5 favoring the home team. Vikings total on the high end, 51 in this one. These teams have actually gone over in 5 straight games against each other. The Lions have covered in 7 straight games against the Vikings, and they've been really good, a really good bet as an underdog under Dan Campbell here as well. And you like a side in this matchup. Who are you on?
Yeah, I like the Detroit Lions, and my goodness, the NFC North. This is one of the strongest starts to a division I think that we've ever seen. You can include the Packers, of course, they're always good. How about the Bears with Caleb Williams? This game is critically important to that division. What's made the Vikings so special this year is their defensive coordinator, Brian Flores. This guy is calling exotic coverages, like stuff that, in football circles, it doesn't make any sense that he would even think to call these plays. And yet he's calling them, and they're confusing even the most veteran quarterbacks on the year. Well, they're facing a Detroit Lion team with a savant in their own end in Ben Johnson, their offensive play caller. The antidote to facing exotic coverages and the antidote to a defensive coordinator trying to confuse your quarterback, line up and run that football. That's what Detroit's going to do. I think that's a big reason why they've been so good as underdogs too, is they're able to impose their will and take their opponents into their world. So I know that the points are plus 1.5. I think the Lions can win this one, but I'll take the 1.5 points.
Okay, a silly question for you as we wrap things up here at the end. So you're often watching a football game, and there's less than 2 minutes left on the clock, and the team who has the lead has the ball. And the only thing they don't have to do is don't turn over the ball. Do not throw an interception. Do not fumble it. It's super obvious, but we see it all the time. It seems like whether it be college or NFL, a pivotal turnover at the end of the game ends up determining things. And I wonder to myself, do the guys in the huddle say, like, dude, whatever you do, do not fumble the ball. Do not throw an interception. It should be obvious, but when you're in the huddle late in the game, is this something that gets reinforced?
Yeah, it's when that really happens is it's at the start of the drive. So typically it's after a punt or a kickoff or turnover, whatever it is, which means there's a TV timeout. So your whole entire offense and head coach are meeting down on the field. And that's when the situational conversations happen to say, hey, say you're with a lead, get down in bounds, right? Don't run out of bounds, get down in bounds. Hey, they're going to be punching and clawing at the football. Extra emphasis on ball security. So I'd say the funny thing is, though, is if you need to be told to do that, you're probably at risk anyways. And there's just a certain group of guys, maybe on every roster, there's like 5% of guys that just aren't really aware or able to grasp that situational aspect of the game. And it leads to some bad problems. And the other thing is, too, is like, hey, you ever see a guy when you get tackled, say you're going down to try to take the lead, you're trying to stage a comeback. When you get tackled, well, what every team teaches is you're supposed to hold on to the football, run it to the official, and hand the football to the official. Don't throw it to him. Don't throw it to the center, because defensive guys, they'll come and just knock the ball out of the way, and they risk a delay of game. But man, it's just crazy how little margins make a big difference. Think about Ohio State, Oregon last week. Like if there's 7 or 8 seconds on the clock, we're looking at Ohio State kicking a field goal with a chance to win. So every single second counts.
Yeah, I love it. That's where my mind always goes. Patrick Mahomes saying to the boys, whatever you do, don't fumble it here, guys. Yeah. But Yeah, so good to know. Great information from Jake today. So, Jake, thanks for appearing on the show with us. Best of luck with all those bets. Best of luck with your work with the Big Ten Network this week, and we look forward to chatting with you again next week.
Thanks, Joe. Always good, man. We'll see you next week.
Yes, sir. Okay, 82% of people in the live chat, we put up this poll. Who do you think is going to cover in the Thursday night football game? 82% of people on the Denver Broncos. What could possibly go wrong here, guys? Everything pointing to them. Of course, a favorite on the road. A short week. I still like them. I'm not really a big fade the public guy. Okay, wrapping up here. Let's do a little recap of my picks here. I like the Broncos to cover 2.5. If you like them, make sure you find that 2.5. I think there's should still be some out there. I like Javonte Williams to go over his receiving yard total of 17.5. Juan Soto over his hits, runs, and RBIs, 1.5 at -125. And back in Jose Quintana, big time tonight in New York, going to take the Mets' first 5 innings. Jingles like Matthew Boyd over 3.5 strikeouts. Yamamoto over 13.5 outs. Estime, anytime touchdown, 7-1, taking a nice big swing on that. I love that. Foster Moreau over 1.5 receptions. And Bub Meads over 33.5 receiving yards. Okay, that does it for today's show today. We're going to be right back with you guys tomorrow for a big one. Brad Powers will be leading off the show, breaking down all the big games this weekend in college football. He's probably going to have a few more best bets as well. After that, Jingles will be right back with me. We're going to be breaking down all of our best bets for Week 7 Sunday action. Had a really good Week 6. It was my best week of the season, so hopefully can replicate that here this week. Thank you to all you guys for tuning in. Thank you to my 2 guests for joining. Thank you to producer Mick for producing. Thank you to BetMGM for sponsoring our show. Best of luck with your bets tonight, everybody. We will catch you guys again tomorrow. Woo!